welcome everyone back to Miscellaneous Fuzz. I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, roll with the intro. Go. You're on the way now.
But thanks for joining in. My name's Elijah, and I will be. No, I'm not going to be the host. But yeah.
You can be if you want.
No, I don't know where we're taking this. So.
It doesn't. We can take it wherever. You can. So bad. Oh my god.
But I mean, thanks for joining in, and if you're still watching, don't forget like and subscribe, turn on the post notifications so you don't miss a single video.
Yeah.
And, yeah, Zay, please take it from here because I'm crumbling as I speak.
You are way too good at that for what it is. But yeah, Miscellaneous Fuzz, episode 9. We are joined by guest today, as Elijah introduced himself already, Elijah, and I've also got Mica here at my side, Sol Rekam. And it's just, again, it's nice just to have some friendly faces and some people to join us just to discuss music and the world around us, really.
That's a nice way to put it. Friendly faces.
Friendly faces.
That's very eloquently put out there.
By the fireplace.
Oh, the friendly faces.
It's great. Beautiful.
Yeah, it just adds that bit of ambience. Today we're also in Mica's studio. It adds like a nice little vibe. So behind us we've got basically like this whole studio set up. It's kind of a place where we've just been congregating since post-COVID, just making music and just kind of collaborating and making what's interesting to us. But today we're just here to talk music and just kind of get to know you, just, talk about ourselves, kind of like what we're doing in between each other and just, have a good time. But as I say, like it's been probably a good year since we've been really working together on music. Do you want to kind of speak on just kind of how we've all kind of come to meet, including me, you, Elijah, and stuff like that? Because you're kind of like the centerpiece to this all in a way. With like kind of, and you are though, like really think about it.
Definitely.
I mean, so basically to sum it all up, me and Zay started working with each other last year or the year before that in December for my music video Fame with Fam, which was me and Oyahana. And we did that, posted that in Feb on the UNDROVTH YouTube channel, which is our record label. And then the rest kind of just went all together. Like, I already brought Elijah into UNDROVTH because I knew him from university, and we vibed out, and he's fucking sick. So, can I cuss?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, go for it.
He's fucking sick. He's
We're not
talented.
trying to get monetized, it's fine.
Sweet. And so, it was a no-brainer to include him into UNDROVTH. And then, I guess after we released the music video, we started working more with Elijah. We started more free time, and then Zay started working with Elijah, and now Zay's working with other people and other people and other people. I don't know if I can say, but other people and other people, which is fucking sick. And so now I guess UNDROVTH little Zay's.
But no, you're right.
Yeah.
Like.
Killing it.
That's what I mean. It's really nice just to, I know anyone else that kind of even listening at home, it's nice just to have people, and like even everyone here can agree, it's like nice to have people that are just kind of on the same wavelength and just wanting to even just make things. Like being in those, like I think one thing that everyone can agree with is like being in those spaces, being in spaces which are conducive to creativity and encourage kind of just creativity and kind of making the stuff that you want is so helpful just to like, actually get that stuff out there. I mean, even something like starting up this podcast, it was, it's really good being in the same distance where I always record with Kira. It's like, it's always like kind of like, we push ourselves to kind of.
And if we want to do something, we just go, let's just do it.
Let's just do it, yeah.
We don't really fuck around. We're just like, we have an idea.
Yeah.
Then we just.
It's none of that pondering. Because I find that like a lot of ideas, like if we're speaking about just kind of like even creative ideas, I feel like they linger in this kind of limbo between wanting that you get this idea and you want to do it, but just not executing it and moving forward because it's like you're either kind of like just scared of kind of what the outcome is, or you're like, oh, I can't achieve that until you actually just put yourself out there and do that. Like that's kind of something where I always think about how I feel about even just releasing music and stuff like that. I think that's also like always that first step, and like trying to get over that's always quite difficult.
That's why I've gotten so like hyped about like you UNDROVTH guys. Like I'm living like vicariously through Isaiah sometimes because he'll just show me stuff and I'm just like, this is so cool. Like they're just, they're just doing it, and like they're actually all bonus. So you're all like really good at it. And you guys are really working hard with it. So
thank you. Thank you very much.
No, it's just
on that whole topic of like breaking that barrier to release your first song. Once you do it, it's no longer there as well. So like if you get it out of the way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's kind of like breaking that. It's kind of like breaking the virginity in a way. Like if I'm being blunt, being blunt, that's kind of what it is. It's about like, I mean, even when I started even doing just like, I remember even just like YouTube content. I mean, Elijah, you probably relate to some extent then. Like, because I used to post more like. I used to do it for YouTube videos and stuff, and I remember feeling like when I wanted to start doing it, it was really difficult just to kind of like put yourself out there and actually just put that first one up into the public space. And then, but I remember by the first time, once I just did it once, from there it was just really smooth sailing. I felt very comfortable with kind of like my own image and just everything like along those lines.
See, I can't wait to be like that with recording music. I'm fine with like podcast stuff. That doesn't bother me, but recording music, I procrastinate because I get so like insecure, and it's just like so, like I'll just procrastinate about it for ages. So I'm like, I can't wait to just get to the point where I'm actually like comfortable to just do it like off the cuff.
When you say music, do you mean instrumentals or like actual
recording?
songs?
Yeah, like vocals.
Maybe try releasing a few instrumentals first, because with me, I was like a beat maker first, so I was doing all my stuff on YouTube.
Yeah.
And I mean on YouTube, because you have the anonymity.
Yeah.
Did I say that right?
You did.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Didn't butcher that. Fuck yeah.
It is a hard word. It's like anemone off Nemo.
Yeah, I always say anemone.
Yeah.
Always say it.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Sorry, I don't side that.
No, it's all good. But yeah, because you remain anonymous, it's kind of like you can post and get used to the whole idea of letting something that you've created out into the world without like any, I guess, repercussions. Like, yeah, people will comment, but it's like,
It's true. It's so true. I think when you adding vocals and like writing is just another layer of like that personal attachment. I think maybe there's something about beats it can be a little bit more detached if you want it to be. Yeah.
But like that's the good thing, because it will get you accustomed to it. Because then I remember like when I released my first song with Mama, like that, it was just instinct. I just knew I had to do it. Like there was no fighting. There was no is this too good? No. Once it was finished, I liked how it sounded. Alright, sweet, bang.
That was a great first track.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. It was.
It's that confidence, but like even on that topic too, just watching people build that confidence and like watching, for instance, just recently I got to watch just for the first time actually, I watched Elijah record something just very much off the cuff, but watching people that are so in their element like yourself in that space, and I always can't help but wonder like getting to that point where you're so comfortable with that and it just becomes your space, and you can just watch how natural you are when you record, and like you can whip things up that quickly, and it's really just interesting to watch those ideas just come so quickly, even if you have stuff pre-written, but just even just the mixing and mastering process of how quickly you do something like that. It's really interesting to watch people just work in their space when they just understand all the tools they have, and they have that versatility just to go across things, even yourself with your beats, and just kind of like watching you go back and forth and record. It's just so interesting to watch how people record, and like they're just the different processes of things and how people are comfortable. Like it's something that I feel like is probably quite unique across just individuals as a whole.
Yeah. Everyone's got a different workflow.
Yeah.
Definitely.
100%.
Like, do you find when you guys kind of record, do you find there's anything in particular that you guys do that's different to what you see other people do? Like, do you have like those kind of quirks? Because I know, like, for instance, when I record stuff for like even video content and stuff like that, there's particular things I'll do with my setup, or there's like kind of rituals I have before I start kind of like recording.
When you say ritual?
Ritual.
What's your ritual?
What's my ritual?
Do you bring out the candles, the sage?
Oh, I mean, look, for instance, like, sage, yeah, man, like, you gotta bless the room a little bit. But no, like, alright, for instance, when I'm doing writing, so I'm like writing lines or something like that, I typically, when I write, I do actually like to have something to drink. I actually notice that's something it helps me ease up and kind of like release the tension. So it's often like straight whiskey. Yeah, that's true. So like,
I say it's actually 85. He's an 85-year-old man trapped in a 21-year-old's body.
Yeah, I know. Some of my
fine. That's what makes it special. Yeah.
I mean, some of my tastes are kind of
no, it's not a bad thing.
But they're mad. Like I gotta agree with you on that. Like whiskey's fucking sick.
No, it is.
But yeah, back on that, like it's just it helps me loosen up, because it's kind of sometimes especially when you're like really setting the intent to do something, you need to kind of feel like loosened up. Like whether you use like depending on whatever you use, like that's just kind of like, not that I use it as a crutch or anything, but I find that just like having that, it's kind of a ritual that helps me just kind of relax, and I write things and I'll be more eager just to kind of, express them aloud too, even if I'm in the room by myself. Like, do you guys does anyone else find that they have those types of rituals to help themselves kind of like ease into the process or anything like that?
Yeah. I don't know if I can say it though. But Wait, am I?
Yeah, just what the fuck?
It's not one, like, we're not trying to make it PG.
Wait, yeah, exactly.
Like, no shit. I'm a musician. But other than that, I guess it's just, I don't know, like, with me now, especially beats, it's become so kind of like a systematic approach that I don't necessarily need inspiration to make a song.
Yeah.
I can just make something. And sure, it might not sound amazing, but it will sound decent enough and it will have an idea there that's solid, that someone else can build on that and make it sound amazing.
Totally.
So it's like, when it comes to that, really, I don't really have any ritual just because, like I said, it's so systematic now. But with my writing, I find that reading right before I write is amazing. Or before a freestyle or anything, that's incredible.
Yeah.
It's like now that's like one new thing. I'll read for ages. Start writing.
Yeah. I think constant... Sorry, what were you
saying?
No,
go.
I was going to say, like, I think constant productivity, just sort of what you were saying, is so important as well. Just constantly make stuff. It doesn't have to be like when you just get the flash of genius or whatever. Because sometimes that can take a while to hit.
Yeah.
And it can...
The lightning in the bottle.
Because then you just end up being like just a waiter. Like you wait in line for ages, pretty much. It's like, if you're doing that, then keep it as a hobby.
Yeah, totally.
If you really want to make a career out of it, you need to get into the habit of making beats every day. And if you're not a beat maker, alright, sweet. Talk to a beat maker, get him to send you 5 beats a day, and from that, make 5 songs a day.
Yeah.
Or at least 5 verses. Like, you need to get into that habit if you want it to be your career. Like, it sucks, but you have to do it. You're not going to get anywhere.
I suppose that's kind of on the on the idea of manifestation, which me and you have talked a lot about, like the idea of like manifesting something into becoming a reality. The concept and the idea of manifesting something into real life, it's not always directly linked. It's not always like that. If you manifest something, it's going to happen. But the idea is that it's a systematic process whereby if you believe in it hard enough and you take the appropriate steps to get there, inevitably you're going to kind of shape and mold that to some extent.
That's the right way to conceptualize manifestation, because there are some people that just think they can, again, whip out a crystal and just write something down and it'll just, it'll just get there. You have to put in the work. You have to.
100%.
But do you find, though, just with what you were saying about making, say, so many beats a day, do you find, though, that... Is there ever a point where you feel like the joy is sucked out of it a bit? Because you're constantly over-producing?
100%. 100 fucking %.
Do you think that hinders you in any way?
It did. Like, all last year, I was probably, like, in the lowest point, creatively speaking. And through reading and, like, meditating and kind of understanding that whole thing of... just going off what you were saying before, like having whiskey before you do something, right? Or me, smoking a joint before I write music, whatever. Through meditating and doing all that process, you kind of understand that, well, that's just bullshit. That, if anything, inhibits it. Yeah. If you know how to actually let your mind flow, you'll create far more amazing shit than you would on the influence of anything else. Yeah. And through that, kind of, it reminded me of the love for music again. Yeah. So it brought me out of it, but still occasionally, like, if I'm not feeling it on the day, like if I just can't be fucked making music, but I still force myself to make music, then most of the beats I won't like, but there's usually at least one beat that, like, I'll love.
It's like, that's kind of like the idea of like that essential feeling though. It's kind of the beats, like when you like a beat, it's also kind of conducive to like how you feel at the point in time as well. It's like when you make any type of music, or anything that's kind of a creative statement, I find that if the space you're in is positive and it evokes positive feelings, likely what you make is gonna kind of translate along in that same energy. Does that make sense? Yeah.
I believe that.
And that's also why sometimes you've got to step away from something too for a while. Because sometimes when you're like hyper-focusing on something you've made, you can sort of lose... I don't know, it's like you lose your senses. Yeah. And you either get too picky or you just think it's terrible or you think it's amazing. And then you'll come back and be like, oh, actually it was shit. Or the other way around. So, yeah.
With me, I found that like the moment I get to that point where I have too many options, I'm like, oh, should I do this or this or this and this, and it just starts clouding my judgment. The moment I get to that point, I'm like, all right, sweet, I need to stop.
Yeah.
And that's when I go outside, have a smoke, come back inside, play with Luna, and then I'll start again, and then it's usually, all right, sweet, restart.
For context, Luna is the dog.
Yeah.
Luna
There's a dog down here. Very cute.
sleep on the ground very gracefully.
How about you? Do you have a particular process, Elijah?
Not necessarily, but when it comes to something that I actually go forward with and write with, it's a matter of like when I go through melodies or samples or loops, if I'm writing to it like straight away or like singing a melody to it straight away, then chances are I'm going to work on that for a good chunk of time and actually write something to it, as opposed to like just making a beat and then being like, okay, let's just try and write something to it.
100%.
And so that's I guess my process when it comes to like sample selection and loop selection.
It's kind of interesting. So you're speaking the idea of instead of labouring on something. So when you set out the intent to make something too, you set out to like blatant of an intent. So for instance, if you make just some odd beat and you go, okay, I have to write over this, it probably, I suppose it does hinder the overall creative process and kind of, you know, the autonomy of yourself and kind of being able to really execute a kind of an inspiring idea, really, I suppose.
See, but also on that note, I know I might be taking it too deep here, but this is how I feel just because this book that I read, it's fucking amazing. But
What's it called?
it is called, it's The Artist's Ways, a spiritual guide to creative free thinking, something like that.
Okay.
And it's like this, how many weeks is it? 12-week course basically thing, where each week you have to do a bunch of exercises, but also during that you have, for the whole duration of the book, you need to do what's known as morning pages. What morning pages is the first moment that you wake up, you do three pages of flow writing. So what that means is you write everything that you think. So if you think, I don't know what to write, you write that. And then eventually it'll come out, I don't know what to write, damn, what should I write today? Oh, I don't know, maybe it's the sky's so blue. Oh wow, look at that. So you see, and you keep going. And then all of a sudden you have 3 pages of just thoughts. And then the idea of that is to like get blurts out. Shit like that.
Yeah. That sounds incredibly interesting, actually.
Great book.
That
so
sounds
good.
really good. Yeah.
So good.
I've never heard of that before.
It's made to kind of like, it's made to basically condition your brain to not have a block.
Yeah.
That's the whole idea of it. And
dude, I can use that. I might actually.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
But like through that, you kind of learn, because like the way they kind of talk about it is really spiritual, I guess.
Yeah.
But they say from the get-go, like, if you don't believe in it, then change the word. Like, immediately just translate it. It doesn't matter. It's just the way they can describe it. It's the only way that is effable, I guess. So, the way they put it pretty much is, if you're a creator, you create. You don't need to wait.
Yeah.
The whole idea that you create something out of nothing.
Yeah.
So why you're waiting around for nothing, literally. Like, what? You're a creator.
Yeah.
So it's that whole mindset. It's getting to that mindset that I am a creator, so I can create at any time that I want. There's nothing stopping me. There's no like yes, 100% inspiration is amazing. Yeah. Inspiration helps fuel it like crazy. But if you're a creator, you create. That's what you do. There's nothing stopping you.
It's so true. I feel like the more... Sorry, go.
No, go.
I feel like the more I've been making stuff, the more I've realised that the idea of like inspiration is sometimes, I don't know, it's a bit of a like thankless task sometimes. Waiting on it is actually sometimes more, or feeling like you can only start something once you get that. Yeah. Can actually be more of a hindrance. So just with the way you explain that makes so much sense.
Well, definitely. Sorry to cut you off.
No, it's good.
No, it's actually, you know what, Zay, don't talk at all. You've done your part.
It's like, it's a really interesting thought, because like the way you guys are speaking about the idea of just inspiration, it makes me think of the way we frame inspiration should be quite different, because waiting on inspiration doesn't always strike. I think we should look at inspiration in more of the sense of it's kind of like it's a dessert. It's like an additional push.
Not even, because a dessert you can actually have it guaranteed whenever you want. That's true. Inspiration is just random.
It's like lightning in a bottle in a way. And I think kind of speaking of inspiration, it's kind of like this idea that we should cherish it when it comes along, because it is so powerful and it moves us in a certain way, and you know, it leads us in different directions, depending on kind of what the inspiration is, where it's sourced from. Is it sourced from negative feelings? Is it sourced from positive feelings? Like, it just makes me feel about, I know we spoke about this on the last episode recently, but this makes me think, because unfortunately we had the passing of something like MF Doom, who passed away recently, which was a really big loss to the hip-hop community. But one of the most positive things I've seen come out of his essentially passing is some amazing inspiration from some of the artists I love and care about, kind of like Open Mike Eagle, Aesop Rock. They've all released essentially just, basically little 16s and songs all inspired by Doom, and it's some really creative, and it's really influenced by what he left behind and kind of their experiences with the man himself, and kind of really hearing that embodied in music is quite surreal, but it kind of pushes the whole community forward to kind of, keep creating, kind of like move forward, and kind of also mourn someone who was considered a legend in a way. It's a very unfortunate sense of inspiration, but in the end it actually is inspiration. It pushes us forward, because
this is kind of on a different tangent, but one point that someone made on a podcast I was listening to that was talking about MF Doom's passing, I can't remember which podcast it was, but they were saying, actually no, it was Sean C on YouTube.
Sean C.
He was talking about how he kind of feels like Doom hasn't really, because Doom kept his personal life so separate to his persona, it's almost like he hasn't actually really died. And that because it's
the mask lives on.
Yeah, the mask lives on, and how it was almost so, I guess, genius of him to do that, because now it can sort of be this immortal, omnipresent thing. 100%. Yeah. I know it's a bit of a side note, but it was just a really important, like a really interesting point, and I'm like, that's why I almost think that he didn't actually die on October 31st, which is Halloween. I just think they made up that day, because obviously the point of Halloween is like you wear a mask. I don't know. I just feel like that's too on the nose. This is sort of, again, a side note, but I was thinking about it.
The
like,
coincidence.
I don't think he actually died on the 31st. I reckon they've just said that. He's definitely obviously passed away before New Year's Day, but I reckon they've even done that as another layer of privacy for him, because it's symbolic and metaphorical.
Possibly, yeah.
But what a way to
search like death records and stuff on the same day.
Yeah. But still, speaking on that, like, what a way to go out. What a symbol to leave behind. Just from its resurrection, like, it kind of, he'll forever be resurrected through the mask, in a way,
exactly,
and that symbol will be carried for generations and generations. We work and live in a genre of music that is so present and so current. There's no other genre that is so evolving as much and progressing as much as hip hop right now. And I think we could all agree, because we're all making it, living it, and kind of learning from it. And it's so amazing to be kind of in a point in time where we're so a part of and shaping this particular genre, and just being alive is at the same time as a lot of these artists making tremendous music, like Doom himself is, and it just kind of goes to show like how evolving and how current the genre is.
We're actually like living amongst the innovators.
It's a lot to think about. It's a lot to take in. Really, it's a bit gravity defying. Like,
even just seeing the way the charts have changed so dramatically.
Yeah.
Over the last couple of years is like crazy. Or not even a couple of years. I reckon over the last year or two is just crazy. Like a lot of the top albums, most of the top albums, the most played songs. I did a bit of research before.
Yeah, pull up the research.
Yeah,
pull up the research, because these are some really interesting points.
There's this like giant master doc that Billboard does, or it's not Billboard, but someone connected to Billboard.
Yeah, come through.
Do you think? At the end of the year. So I wrote so much fucking text. Anyway. Well, I didn't actually write it, I copy and paste it, but it all looks like a big blob of text. Anyway, so the year's most consumed song was The Box by Roddy Ricch, which has a lot to do with TikTok, because the memes. And then the most consumed album across all genres was Lil Baby's My Turn.
He had a big year.
Yeah.
But he had a big year, though.
Oh.
What did you think about that? Did you listen to that album, Elijah?
Yeah.
What did you think of it? Because, look, I probably wasn't as receptive to it as I probably was. Can you kind of speak on that a little bit? Because I wasn't really...
For what his sound was, it's like one of those things similar to, like, Playboy Carti when he was coming up. Like, I never heard much at all about, like, Playboy Carti in terms of his fan base building or, like, him doing shows. And then one day he was just at a festival, like, with this massive sold out stage, and he's just going off and the crowd is loving him. And it's sort of the same thing with DaBaby. Like, he dropped a couple singles here and there, and he popped off, and everyone was like, "Oh, sweet," but no one actually realized the level as to how far his fans were going to like listen to his music. Yeah. And so when he dropped his album, it was just like the fans just flocked to it and were like playing it every day. TikTok got on a lot of his songs and started making heaps of dances. And a lot of people don't realize that like he went from literally just another YouTube rapper to the biggest name almost in all of hip hop for the year.
That's true.
But especially with someone like DaBaby, I feel like his flow and his delivery is so distinctive. And I think that's helped him like tremendously because you just know when it's him.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that might then be his crutch as he goes on, because I feel like he lacks sometimes a little bit of variety. But I don't know. That's like...
I feel as though he will age well because of the label support around him now, because he's like the big name in his label. Because you can already see with a lot of his new coming up songs where he's trying to do singing and adding more vocal work as opposed to him just like fast rapping from back to back, and he's taking on trends like the Afrobeat trends on Don't Rush.
Yes.
He's really trying to expand himself, which I think is very much an influence of the people around him being like, hey, look, you got this really good thing going for you, but it's not going to last out, the next 5 years or so.
He's got such an interesting history too. Like I remember listening to an episode of Popcast, which is basically a podcast by the New York Times, who have a really, really, really rich knowledge in kind of the hip hop sphere and just music as a whole. And they were talking kind of about his kind of rise and talking about where he came from as an artist and talking about how he was quite, for lack of a better word, quite hood. Like he was kind of like the local drug dealer and stuff like that. But Young Thug tried to bring him, kind of like want to take him off the streets and get him into the studio and get him to make music, because it was really funny. Lil Baby was someone who never really had an interest in rapping. He never really took to that. But it took the influence of Young Thug trying to get him into the studio and just making music. To see someone who was so reluctant to even be a part of kind of the culture and rejected at first, to make it this far as well and so successfully and with such versatility alongside someone like Young Thug is actually quite incredible. Like what she'd come through. And it's really cool just to see his success. But you also had something else in those notes that I thought was really worthwhile. Something about female MCs.
Oh yeah, so look, I'm just going to read it word for word. So before 2020, few female rappers achieved #1 singles on the Hot 100 across the charts history. But in 2020 alone, 5 women, known for their MC talent, so 5 female rappers, were performers on #1 singles as the lead or featured act. So this was #1s, career first #1s for Megan Thee Stallion, Doja Cat, Nicki Minaj, and even M.I.A, which I thought was interesting.
M.I.A, really?
M.I.A, yeah, she was on a track with, I think, was it Young Thug?
What's the track called?
To be honest, I can't remember the name of the track, but it charted really well.
Yeah, that's interesting actually.
But it was a feature, it wasn't like a standalone track. But it's it's so true. I feel like there was such a point in time where there had to be like the female rapper, like the one female rapper.
Yeah,
it was
once Nicki Minaj came around, it was like, all right, sweet, everyone has to try and be like her.
Yeah, and then Nicki Minaj and Cardi B. It was always like, is it Nicki Minaj or Cardi B? It's like, why can't it be and Cardi B? It's just, it was so ridiculous. So I think it's just really cool to see even just a lot of like female MCs working together on tracks. That was just something you never really saw. Like even just in history, it was so rare. And if they were, that it was always this like competition. So I don't know. I think that's something that's really important
to have
in general. Like women working together on tracks is like, I think across a lot of genres is actually surprisingly rare sometimes.
Yeah, the combination of female.
I mean, especially in rap, but like sometimes just across all genres as well.
Shout out to the female MCs out there. Like, there's so many great names though. Like,
I actually don't know many though.
Don't know many. That's
shout out Maruba.
Yeah, true. No, exactly. Like, shout out No Name, someone I like particularly love. I got to see her live in 2018. Was it when she came? 2018 or early 2019. So I remember going and seeing her perform live. And
I wish I went.
Yeah, it was a really good set. It was a really awesome set, and I'm really sad. Yeah. So I don't know if I'll get a chance to see her again. I got to see her live, and Genesis Owusu, who's like an Australian artist, opened up for her, and he's a really, really awesome artist right now. He's kind of making his way up the ranks.
His album is going to be
phenomenal. Yeah.
So good.
And just No Name's presence as kind of like a female hip hop MC in the underground, but also kind of like really growing in presence as someone who just excites me a heap. But
This is something I was talking to you about recently. That there's not enough female alternative rap, like
that's true.
alternative rappers.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a real lack of that. I could run off a giant list of like female what was I saying? Female like pop rap acts.
Mhm.
Like, you know, you got like Doja Cat, Saweetie, you know, that kind of whole deal. Cardi B, Nicki Minaj.
Yeah.
But like when I think of like alternative rap, the most I can think of is like
Soft
maybe
rock.
No Name and like someone like Jean Grey.
Jean Grey, Sampa the Great, yeah.
Yeah.
TK Midza maybe.
Yeah.
But TK Midza is more pop.
She leans more into pop rap, right?
Yeah. But yeah, Sampa is someone who I always love listening to too. It's just I feel like, and that's something else we've spoken about before. Like I'd love to hear what you guys think about this, but I feel like I feel like female hip hop artists present such an interesting change in perspective that is currently like held very tightly in the genre, especially when we're talking from a very like forefront mainstream perspective. Like I feel like they kind of take if we're talking about like binary perspective, they take that perspective and almost flip it in some senses. Like especially in the pop rap scene, a lot of like the
subverting the male gaze.
Oh yeah, really, in a way, like
the male gaze.
But it's interesting to see how that's flipped and kind of the views and values and kind of how that's diversified and shit like that.
And I think a lot of people wouldn't even interpret it as being flipped. They would just think that they are actually just trying to appease the male viewers.
Yeah,
like depending on who's looking at it, some people, it's that age-old debate of like, is this empowerment or is this appealing to the male gaze? Mm-hmm. Which most of the time it is. I think if the intention is to oh my god, why can't I talk? I'm like so tongue twisted. If the artist's intention is to be overtly sexual out of like empowerment, which pretty much 99.9% of the time it is.
Yeah.
Then that's what it is. If that's the artist's intention, then that's what they're doing. Then whoever interprets it, whichever way they interpret it, I guess.
It's that interpretation sense.
So poorly explained that. Sorry.
That's okay, but it's just kind of broken. I find that depending on where the MC comes from, it's also divided into like subsections of kind of how an artist wants to be perceived, especially in kind of the female sense.
And the team.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing. That also plays like such a large role. But it just it's really good to see kind of just more of that, and everyone and people being more open as well, just kind of like, you know, throw a few female MCs on, because like there's so many like female MCs that just kind of kill it, and I think that's just kind of shown just even just on the basis of pop rap. There's so many even just like females just in like the underground scene. There's probably not enough actually representation there, but it's just cool to see, because I find I gain a lot from just listening to kind of that perspective, and I like learn more shit than ever.
Definitely.
Like, what are some of your guys, just if you guys were to list off some of your favorite artists in general, like, is there one artist that like pretty much this question's open to anyone here, is there one artist that you guys basically kind of follow
like
and take?
Yeah,
like a ride or die, but also just from like a moralistic perspective, who's kind of that one artist you draw from the most, in terms of not even necessarily just because you love them for their music, but also you kind of appreciate kind of what they stand for as a person, because I find that's realistic.
Great question.
Anything that comes to mind?
I hate to be a dick rider, but Logic.
Logic, no, speak on that, because you followed Logic for ages.
I only say that just because, like, Zay and Elijah both know that. It's always me and Logic. But, no, it's just because from the start of his career, back when he was making mixtapes, he always preached the whole peace, love, positivity. And all the way up to his fame, he's always had that same mentality. Even down to just how he moves throughout social media and this and that. Like, it's not a dick. It's just a normal guy. And you can tell that. You can see that it is just a normal guy making music. He's also making music. And then when he did his whole change to writing Supermarket and then making the album Supermarket, which is a complete fucking flip from, you know, what he was making before, like Bobby Tarantino and his Logic albums and this and that. But even that whole aspect of, I don't give a fuck what my fans are going to think. Like, I make music for myself. That's been the whole idea of this. Like, I've said that from the start, still ripping at the end. Like, if they're going to mix up and, you know, they're thinking that I'm their slave and I have to make hip hop, and no, get the fuck out of here. And I rate that to an extent, just because when I make my music, as much as, yes, you know, I'm going to love every one of my fans, of course. They're the ones that put, you know, the food on my plate. But also, I'm making music for myself. That's why I'm releasing my music. Like, I'm releasing it for people to enjoy, yeah, but I made it for myself. Like, I made it out of my own emotions to just let out. Like, it's like a vent. So, I fuck with that with the ideology. Like, you know, no one's going to stop me. Like, I'm just going to do what I want to do. Like, if I want to do hip-hop, sweet, I'll do hip-hop. If I want to do reggae, I'll do reggae. Who gives a fuck? Like, you can't stop me. Like, yeah, you can say whatever the fuck you want.
Can't put you to a box.
Yeah, like, that's the whole idea.
That's a great thing to take from it too, though. Like, if that's like the morale you're taking from another artist, that's like one of the, you know, it's one of the key things you want to take. It's perfect. It really is.
It's absolutely beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah.
What about you, Elijah?
Probably for me, probably J. Cole.
He's fucking
He was probably the first person that really showed me the talent in story writing. So before J. Cole, like, my only really rap, I guess, influence at the time was like Eminem, Tupac, and like Biggie, like just the big names that everyone sort of listens to. And it was like, yeah, this stuff's cool and it's like bar for bar, and Eminem's like fast rapping, it's mad. But then when I stumbled across J. Cole, it was just like every line spoke to like something that I was going through or something that I could relate to, and it was from a place of like, it was almost like it wasn't even a song. It was just like he was explaining situations that I was going through, and then he also shed light on, you know, situations that were somewhat controversial, but from a point of like, I'm not trying to like come at you for your difference in opinion, but like, I'm just trying to show you that there is another side to this. Like, there is some things you could consider.
That point of understanding.
Yeah, for sure. And then I just felt like it was just most effective to really just communicate his message and his stories about his life to like his audience. And then I fell in love with that way of, I guess, rapping and storytelling, of the idea of creating these vivid pictures with words that, you know, that I'm writing in my kitchen, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's even like that's something I always speak about myself. Like when I think about writing, and I think some of the most compelling storytellers and writers in hip hop are the people who can take everyday life and such mundane tasks and ideas and turn them into fleshed out stories which are creative and interesting. People which come to mind for me are people like Rap Ferreira, Open Mike Eagle, and A$AP Rock, especially A$AP Rock. A$AP Rock has a very interesting way of, you know, basically taking those types of scenarios, like rapping about his cat. He has like stuff where he just raps about his cat and kind of what the cat does for him in a very lighthearted tone. But it's this idea of taking, you know, something that's an idea that's so small and like of real life and turning it into something greater, and kind of speaking on like the idea of the cat as an act of therapy, kind of like introducing the cat to, you know, balance out, correct, like kind of create balance in his life and stuff like that.
He even has this song about going to a shrink, and like the way he breaks down the exchange between himself and the therapist is just like so cool. Like, it's that idea of like him being cryptic, but then also being alienated by how like clinical the therapist is sounding. And anyway, it's just such a good song.
This actually, you know what this also reminds me of? Speaking of Logic, one song he had on No Pressure, which it kind of reflected this to me and which I really liked, because you'll be able to speak on this, is Dad Bod.
Yeah.
Dad Bod is a phenomenal song for that very reason.
It is actually, it's
for that very reason, because he takes that idea of just who he is and his everyday life and really just kind of, alright, here it is. Yeah.
100%. I mean, there's not really much else to say though about that one. Like, it's just, he's just talking about being a dad and a baby and going to buy diapers and cleaning shit and like, wait, what was the line? I saw this cute girl at the store the other day, but I wasn't wondering if she had fat ass. It was like something about like fat ass, but then he was like, nah, fuck that, where's the diapers? Yeah. And he just turns around, goes the other direction, and goes and gets his shit.
But yeah, that contrast though, like there's something so kind of captivating and attractive about that contrast and kind of taking that and leading someone through that. That's really interesting. And being able to, like, in the same vein of even J. Cole, where, you know, you can take these worlds the world we live in and really make great commentary out of it, whether it's even just talking about the self and the grounded reality that we're in. And just being able to do that is phenomenal. And
that's why, like, one of my favorite albums from J. Cole was probably one of the most hated and underrated albums amongst the, I guess, commercialized community is For Your Eyes Only. That's probably one of the top 3 albums of J. Cole of mine. And 2 songs on there, well, 3 songs really stand out to me is She's Mine, Part 1 and 2, and Folding Clothes. Like, the other songs are great, like, they've got mad bars, great sounding songs, good fun songs, but like, these particular 3 took, like, really simple kind of, like, everyday activities that no one would think to write about.
Especially folding clothes.
And like how he talks about pouring in almond milk, and he's like, "Fuck, I'm drinking almond milk." That's the level that he's at now. But even with like She's Mine Part 1 and 2, it takes the I guess typical cliche love idea of a parent with a newborn child, and it like really fleshes out a poetic sort of take on that whole experience, from the first one being like she's mine in terms of the partner and the wife, and then the second part being about the child and how he contrasts talking about similarities of how he saw love in loving his partner, and then just an overwhelming contrast of love in loving his newborn child. So like, that was, I don't know, I really enjoyed those stories.
And they also just become even more kind of identifiable in the sense that these are things, you know, you as a listener can very much be a part of in a way. Especially, you can go on 2 extremes. Like obviously one where you create, like artists create worlds which are beyond ours, and you know we speak on things, or even like kind of like grandirizing ideas, like kind of like in more of like the pop rap sphere. But then you also have these ideas, like for instance with Folding Clothes, these ideas which people don't often review with grandeur or anything like that, and it's just so amazing that we can uplift those concepts. And like to me, to me that's the greatest form of grandeur. Like that just shows the imagination that we have flourishing in hip-hop, and the way people can take those ideas and really just elevate them, which is really beautiful. And I don't think you often find that in all genres because of the space it gives to actual writing.
But that's what's so good about rap, because you have more, obviously, like you can be more lyrical. It allows you to explore those really small. I'm such a sucker for like artists that can take a really small concept and just make it super compelling and go into such specific detail, and it just makes the human experience feel so much more universal. And it almost kind of unites the listeners even more and connects them even more with the artist.
For sure. One thing I really enjoy with Folding Clothes is the idea that like it starts off as like almost a really simple-minded concept of folding clothes and doing tasks for your partner throughout the day and all these different things. But I really enjoy the contrast, because at the end it kind of takes on a toll where his tone in his voice and the lyrics he chooses to write kind of take on the idea that like that whole song encapsulates the idea of like finding the positives and the really happy moments in such a world and environment that is quite dangerous and actually quite terrifying. Because as the song ends, he talks about how he's looking out the window and he notices that like when you come into contact with, I guess, white people, you have to act a certain way, you have to start speaking a certain way, otherwise you're not going to be treated as fairly or even equally. And the contrast of having to do that to provide better opportunities for you and your family, but then also when you kick it back with your homies, they start thinking, bro, like you're switching up, like why are you talking different? Why are you talking proper? And then it really shows that like it's like even in an environment that's so harsh and so ruthless at times, he's being able to like paint a picture of like, I'm really enjoying spending this time with my partner, doing these simple tasks for her, making her smile and all those different things.
That even reminds me of that Boots Riley directed film, like just kind of what you were saying. There's this film. I'm forgetting the name of it.
Oh my god, we watched it.
If you've watched it, it's a really good film. I'd recommend whoever's listening as well,
I'm
the
just gonna
audience,
quickly search it
to
up.
let's watch the film because it's really good. It's called what's the name? It's directed by Boots Riley, which is kind of another. It's like really someone that's quite
Sorry to
prevalent
bother
in the
you.
hip hop.
Sorry to
Bother You. It's basically Sorry to Bother You. It basically follows the life of someone named Cassius, of all people, Cassius. Yeah, it's just kind of funny knowing that we have Cass. Shout out Cass. I'd love to have Cass even here one day and do this, but yeah, it follows the main character named Cassius Green, who is basically a black man living in America, essentially, and pretty much he's pretty average man.
He's a telemarketer.
Telemarketer, and yeah, he picks up this job as a telemarketer. And basically, the reason why the film is called Sorry to Bother You is because typically when a telemarketer calls, they say, sorry to bother you, but could you fill out this? Or something like that. But pretty much what the film kind of takes this idea of this young African-American man being a telemarketer is kind of channeling this concept of kind of like the white voice. So when he starts off in the film by essentially he's just talking about himself, he's being him. But then he notices he's getting rejected a lot from the people he's trying to call. Mm-hmm. So this man kind of turns another fellow, like co-worker, turns around, it's like, you got to put the voice on, and then he switches up like just immediately because it clicks, and then he becomes this really successful man. But he's kind of like this spitting image of kind of.
I should probably add as well that they get Cassius to put on his white voice, and they literally get a white voice actor to play.
Yeah.
And so it's like it's the metaphor, but like it's and it's just so on the nose and just such a.
He just becomes
great way to conceptualize it.
He just becomes this spinning image of just capitalism and kind of just even just like kind of white power, and he just kind of loses everything that's attached to him, loses his partner and all that, and it's just really like twisted. It becomes this really twisted kind of like
don't
fantasy narrative.
Don't spoil it. No, I highly encourage everyone to watch it. It's a dark comedy.
It reminds me of the Black Klansman.
Yeah, exactly.
Like when he was trying to infiltrate the KKK, he would switch up and put on his white voice and talk about, and then like he would be laughing with the rest of the squad, and as he would go through, he ended up like faking it almost all the way to the point of being in their meetings and then being somewhat civil. Yeah.
Like it's just such a wild. It's so wild because it's just such a very. It's such an implicit thing, but it is true. Like, and it's really kind of, it's just unfortunate that that's a real thing, but it's kind of the result of pretty much everything that's just going on in society, and it's kind of like the negative treatment of. But
isn't it funny though that, say, even just with us talking about how like the top songs and albums were rap albums. Mm-hmm. It's just interesting how black culture is so in the mainstream, yet
so much disrespect.
Yeah, it's a matter of like they're the minority and they've got the number one genre of music in all of entertainment.
Yeah,
and it's just like a display of, I guess, their raw talent and ability to bring out such good and positivity out of such oppression. Mm. And you can have the whole debate of how they displayed that all through history, and I'm sure we all, know of an instance of, that's where rhythm and blues started, that's where jazz originated from, and it was the black community's ability to really find ways to deal with such harsh environments and to like get by creating music and art in such stunning ways.
My uni teacher said it so like simply, but it's kind of haunted me. Is you can't be a good artist unless you've experienced true pain. Mm-hmm. Just simple. Like you can be an artist, but you'll be nowhere near as good unless you've experienced that true pain. And if everyone is different, but I mean, African Americans, mama.
Yeah. And that's again, it's like, and that's what I mean, especially just as people, especially even just being in like living in Australia, and the fact that we even like we engage in kind of like this community, like the hip hop community, and even just the black community as a whole, we're all very much invested in the black community, and kind of it's that thing where you always got to kind of make sure you take the time of day to understand the culture you are kind of working in, and kind of also in a way we take from, because we're very much influenced by black culture. Black culture is such a large part of our lives, and kind of everything we do, and kind of like hip hop and music is so influenced by that. So I always find it's just so important to kind of be involved and just be aware, grab it, like really have that tangibility, like, you know, really tangibly grab and understand and work together and piece together everything that makes what you're doing. And that's what I think that's what helps you. I think that's what helps basically just understand things better and just be more open and fluid in these types of conversations and just, yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Sadly, I just don't listen to any new music, so I'm making it with female artists. I make so much music that I don't have time to listen to music, so it's like, fuck.
Mica's thing.
Dude, I'll make you a playlist.
Mica's guild.
I'll make you a playlist.
Mica's guild is just, I don't listen to enough female MC.
I don't listen to enough music, full stop. Like.
Get a vinyl player, it'll help.
No, but even then, like, I wouldn't, because I spent all my time making music. There's not time to listen to music if I'm making my own music.
Oh no, totally. That's even shit like MF Doom would say. MF Doom even spoken on that. He always say, well, people would ask him kind of like, well, what are you listening to? Like, what young hip hop cats have you been listening to? And you're engaged. And he's like, well, I don't really listen to much that's made now.
Yeah.
I'm spending more of my time kind of making the stuff than I do.
Same as Lil Wayne. He was up the same.
Yeah, this complex interview.
I don't listen to anyone but myself. I don't listen to my songs and my songs only. I don't need any other inspiration. Like, I'm my own inspiration, and I'm like, you know what? That level of confidence is so intimidating.
Yeah, that's great.
Like, oh my god, that was crazy.
Yeah.
You know what? Maybe that's why certain rappers just end up on really weird features, like feature on really weird tracks. Just don't match them at all.
Because they don't know the artist.
Because they actually don't know the artist, and then they're just like, all right, I'll do it for a check.
Yeah.
And then it's a really weird song. So that's what
Snoop
exactly what I was
pops
thinking of, Snoop Dogg.
Oh, some of the places Snoop Dogg has ended up in his
Especially
career.
in the 2000s. The 2000s
Yeah,
was
he's
all
ended up
weird.
on the menu log ad.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Hey, that's low key, like.
It does go hard though.
Yeah, I bump it.
It kinda
I
does
bump
go
it.
I bump it. I bump the menu log ad, bro.
I mean, you can tell he does not want to be there.
Oh,
But
hell
the
no,
song goes
but
hard.
still, I don't care. Like, that's a bop. Every time it comes up, I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, like, it's nice. Yeah, you know, he actually, I just appreciate kind of, from where Snoop Dogg comes from, I appreciate kind of the expansive kind of way his approach to music and just entertainment industry as a whole.
Yeah.
He's kind of been in everything. He's made everything. He's made Afro, he's made gospel, he's made hip hop, he's made so much things. Like G-Funk, yeah. Like, reggae. Oh yeah, he did the Snoop Lion album. Yeah, correct. And one of my favorite albums he's ever released, one of my favorite Snoop Dogg album outside of hip hop, is he made an album called Bush, which was completely produced by Pharrell Williams.
That is such a good album.
It's such a phenomenal
Such a good
album. It's such a
yeah.
it's like a deep funk album. It's so
You've just reminded me of that album. I totally forgot.
Actually phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's a really dope album. But just speaking of just stuff where Snoop Dogg ends up.
Yeah.
That was
early 2000s, right?
that was like 20 in the 2010s. I just don't remember. I think mid 2010s. I would say. Like, it's just such an interesting thing. He's just such an interesting figure in the hip hop sphere.
What the fuck happened with Eminem and Snoop?
Something happened.
2015.
Something happened with Eminem and Snoop Dogg. So
Well, not necessarily Eminem and Snoop, but Eminem is just questioning Snoop.
Eminem questions everyone.
No, like, hop up. It's from his new album Zeus.
I don't.
Zeus.
Yes.
But didn't
It's not Zeus.
call out everyone.
Yeah.
I was gonna say-
Yeah. Well, he apologized to Rihanna
Called
Tyler.
out MGK again. Okay.
and MGK. I don't know if he dissed a rapper called Dozen, but the way he says the line, it might be a rapper called Dozen. And if it is, he's a rapper from Chicago.
You know what? Speaking of MGK, I don't know if you guys, because he made a completely different album to the stuff you normally makes.
Really?
Tickets to My Downfall was a
Oh,
basically
yeah.
it's just basically like a punk rock kind of like a pop punk
That was a
album.
good album.
Huh.
Yeah.
You liked it?
Mhm.
Yeah,
It's
it was.
It's such an interesting reception. With
Critical
that, though.
reception was
Yeah.
so divided. Some people loved it, some people hated it. Some people felt like he was too old to be. They felt like the themes were a bit too juvenile. I don't know.
Just
just
not
like-
enough. Just not enough.
I don't know. I didn't really listen to enough of it to have like a
It
decision on it.
Yeah, for sure.
But
I
like,
love
I was
It
just
was a really repetitive sounding album,
yeah, that's what I got.
and I was just like, yeah, okay, sweet. It was him. You know how we got the little taste with Youngblood.
Yeah.
That punk style song. It was like, yeah, sweet, same sort of thing. But it was still pretty good overall. I
Yeah.
wasn't too disappointed with it.
Hey, sorry, G, can I have the blanket?
for Luna.
Yeah.
Just for context, Luna's just having a bit of a...
She's trying to fucking dig up the carpet to make it a nest, but she can't.
What time are we on?
Hey Zay, do you reckon we could finish up in like 5 minutes or so?
Oh, yeah, you got a few... Oh, yeah, shit.
Well, we're already on
wrap
an
it up.
hour, so I
Already
reckon
on
we
an
start
hour.
wrapping it up.
I reckon we can start wrapping up, yeah. That was really nice. No, thank you. I just want to say again, thank you guys for just joining us and
Thanks for having us.
really putting in some interesting perspectives and just kind of building upon what we talk about, because I know sometimes we just ramble on about shit, so it's nice just to have other people other than ourselves just kind of you know, really build upon these conversations and just see where they go, and it's really nice to have more guests. And in the future I'd love to just have more people on, have you guys on again and kind of just like speak
if
about
you want to.
Of course.
if you want to,
yeah,
of course, like
100%, of course.
but yeah, just even just to come on and even just speak about, because I know everyone here kind of is working on their own music, and I'd love to just have you guys on, even individually, just to speak about specifically your craft, what you've got kind of coming down the pipeline, just kind of, really just kind of speak on as Melbourne artists as well, kind of what you've got coming through, because that's something even I find so interesting, is kind of what we've got here in Melbourne. And, it's really nice to be able to speak to you guys. It'd be nice just to really explore that realm. But
We've got a really cool scene.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
No worries.
This was so much fun.
No, thank you for...
Don't forget to like and subscribe. You're going to hit that post notifications so you don't miss a single video.
Ding dong the notification bell.
5 videos. I think it's still recording.
That's okay. We still got the audio, so the camera stopped recording, but that's
Oh
okay.
yeah, so yeah. And check out the other videos, because that's just fun.
Because that shit's fine. But yeah, no, thank you very much for listening,
Thanks,
and
everyone.
thank you for tuning in. Follow us on Instagram. We're at Miscellaneous Fuzz. Pretty much everywhere. Any social media, if you want to look us up, it's pretty much at Miscellaneous Fuzz.
We might have a TikTok, and the TikTok does have an underscore between Miscellaneous and Fuzz. Now, maybe.
Upon this new information, some might be Miscellaneous
because Miscellaneous
underscore
Fuzz was taken.
But that's okay.
But that's okay.
If we're making the TikTok, if you just want to see some random clips every once in a while and you like TikTok, there's your shit. Go to TikTok.
We're going to also be doing very choreographed dances on TikTok.
One of those.
Are we? Is this a thing I'm not familiar with?
Yeah, we're gonna be hitting.
Oh, nah.
Hitting the woes.
Hitting the woes. That's what we're going.
Oh my lord.
Oh my lord. Alright. On that sentiment, let's move on. Alright.
Cue elevator outro music.
Alright guys, peace.
See ya.